Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Ahmad Yusri, the sixth semester of English department. So this time is a mid test. I will answering fourth questions today. So the first questions is what is the differences between testing, assessment, and teachings. The first one is testing. A test is used to examine people knowledge about something, uh, to determine what the people knows about it, what the people understand about it, what the people has learned about something. Meanwhile, assessment is a systematic process to documenting or using empirical data to measure the skills like beliefs, attitude, and knowledge. And the last one is teaching. Teaching is a process to attending people's needs, experience, and feelings, and intervening so that they can learn about particular thing and go beyond given. Like interventions commonly text from like giving information, sharing, listening, and something like that, or usually facilitating the learning activities such as discussion, like taking note or demonstrating and practice and something like that. Okay, the second question is when the language assessment could be practicality, reliability, validity, authenticity, and flashback, and give some example. Okay, those principles actually could be applied to formal tests, but let's talk one by one of each principle. The first one is validity. Validity is used to know how far the content is useful or meaningful. I mean, in the other hand, like talk about the validity is a measure what's supposed to measure. For example, to know the student scores on listening skills. So as a teacher, we just make one kind of test, such as interview. In interview, just 3 questions. So the question has the same for all of students in the class, like that. But we have to know there are some criteria in validity to know how valid the test. The first one is content related evidence, and the second is construct relate evidence, and the criteria relate evidence, the consequential relate evidence, and the last is face validity. And the second one talk about the reliability. Reliability is a consistency of the result assessment. What does it mean? For example, if you give some question or some test to the same students in different time, it should be yield the same result. There are several factors that we have to know in reliability, like the students relate evidence, the reader relate evidence, and the test administration test reliability. For example, in test administrations, if in the class has a listening test, which is use a tape recorder or speaker, the people or the students who sit near to the windows, which is near to road that has crowded sounds like motorcycle sound, it it's actually has the different result between the other people in the class, because the condition is very bad, is terrible. It's unreliability. So the fourth major or language assessment principle is authenticity. Authenticity is a concept of little spirit to divine, especially within the arts or science evaluating and design tasks. There are several key criteria of authenticity. The first is the language is natural as possible, and then the items are contextualized, and then is interesting or meaningful and can be provided, and the last is thus represent. And then the last is Washback. In Washback we talk about the effect of testing and learning. And the last principle is Washback. What is Washback? Washback is the effect of a testing on teaching and learning. A little bit of Washback can be help the students through the specifications of the numerical scores, like that. So the first principle of language assessment is practicality. Sometimes the value and the quality of a test hinge on nitty-gritty. It's practical consideration. That's why this practicality is very effective. It means that it's not exclusively expensive, relative easy administrative. It means that it's not exclusively expensive, relative easy administer, and then has a scoring procedure. Okay, the third question is how to design the classroom language test. So in the classroom language test, there are so many parts, like the types of. Okay, the first thing we have to do in designing classroom language test is design the purpose of the test. It's gonna help us to know the right kind of taste, and then make us focus on the test. But we have to know there are several types of classroom taste. The first one is language aptitude test. What is that? It's to prepare the person prior to exposure the second language. In this case, we give several tests like number learning, phonetic script, and then spelling words and word in the sentence. The next types is a proficiency test. What is that? Is to measure a learner level language. Like we have to know the ability of the persons, like the speaking skills, listening skills, writing, and for verbal and verbal. Okay, in these types, there are several tasks that we give to the students, like tasks in the modern language after this test, like number spelling. The first is number spelling, and then phonetic scripts, and then we give them like spelling and a word in the sentence. The next one is the proficiency test. In the proficiency test, we have to measure a learner the level language such as the speaking skills, listening skills, writing skills, and the for TOEFL and TOEFL. The next is the placement test. In the placement test, we have to check the academic skills of each students and then to place the students based on their level. And then the next types is a diagnostic test to measure the students, the strengths, and the weakness the students in a language. So we are be able to know how much they still need to learn more. And the last type is the achievement test, which is this achievement test. Talk about the scoring and giving a feedback. In the part of scoring, for example, we test like the listening skills and writing skills. It's absolutely has a different classification of assessment, so we have to know about it. And then after giving a feedback between the students, and in classroom design language, there are some practical steps to test contraction. There are assessing clear the unambiguous objective. We drawing up the specifications of the test to the students, and then devising the test task, and then we're trying to design the multiple choice test item. Okay, and the last questions is how to construct a good test. Okay, actually there are 4 steps how to construct the good test. The first one is the planning test, this is the first important steps in make a good test, which is we have to the main goal of the evaluations. The process is to collect the valid, the reliable, the useful data about the students, which is in this part there are 3 aspects that we have to know, that determining the objective of testing, and the second one is a preparing of specifications, and the last is the selecting appropriate the item types. And the second steps is the preparing the test, this is the next important parts in make a good test, which is we preparing all of things that we need to before we start to make a good test, which is there are several things we need to do, that preparing the test item, and then the preparing the instructions for the test, which is all we know about it. And then the next is we preparing about the scoring key is very necessary. And then the third steps is a try out of the test. After we planning of the test and then we preparing of the test, the next step is a try of the test. It's time to confirming the validity, the reliability, the usefulity of the test. It's gonna help us to identify the ambiguous item. And the last part, or the last step in make a good test, is evaluating the test. After we planning, we preparing, and then we make a tryout. And the most important step that we have to do is evaluating the test. to determine the quality, what is why this step is very important, because in this last step in construction, is to determine the quality of the test, and then to determine the quality of the responses. It's gonna help us how to know these questions is valuable and this one is not. Then we are be able to know the responses of the test. Okay, I think that's all from me.